The emergency lights bathed everything in red as explosions rocked the defense grid around Earth. David Pierce gripped the metal railing of the command center, watching his home planet die through the reinforced windows. 50 years of space, exploration, countless technological advances, and humanity's greatest minds working together. None of it had been enough. The 6 alien fleets moved like predators circling wounded prey. Their ships were massive, sleek things that made human vessels look like toys. The Kethmori brought their energy weapons that could slice through asteroids. The Thraxians deployed boarding pods that stuck to human ships like parasites. 4 other species added their own deadly gifts to the assault. "Sir, we've lost contact with Defense Station 7, reported Lieutenant Mills, her voice tight with fear. "Station 12 is requesting immediate evacuation." David nodded but said nothing. There would be no evacuation. Earth's population of 8 billion people had nowhere to run. The aliens had made that very clear when they first arrived 3 months ago. They wanted Earth's water, its metals, its perfect atmosphere. Humans were just an obstacle to be removed. The first diplomatic. Meetings had been brief. The alien coalition called themselves the Harvesters, and they offered humanity a simple choice: leave the planet voluntarily or be forced off. When human leaders asked where they were supposed to go, the aliens had simply ended the transmission. Now, David watched as another human battle group was torn apart by alien weapons. The USS Liberty, humanity's most advanced warship, exploded in a ball of fire that briefly outshone the sun. 3,000 souls gone in an instant. "How many ships do we have left?" David asked. 47 functional vessels, sir. Maybe 20 that can still fight effectively. 47 ships against 600 alien warships. The math was brutal and simple. David had been preparing for this moment since the first alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit. Not the moment of defeat. That had been inevitable from the start. No, he had been preparing for something else entirely. "Initialize Protocol Exodus," he said quietly. Mills looked up sharply. "Sir, are you certain? Once we start, there's no going back." "Do it." The lieutenant's fingers flew over her console. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in hidden facilities that most humans didn't know existed, ancient machinery came to life. These weren't weapons or shields. They were something far more important. For the past 50 years, while humanity reached for the stars, they had also prepared for the possibility of losing their home. Every major city had underground launch facilities. Every spacefaring nation had contributed to the secret project. If Earth fell, humanity would not die with it. The first sleeper ships launched from hidden silos in the Sahara Desert. Long silver cylinders shot into space like arrows, too small and fast for the alien. Sensors to immediately detect. More followed from Siberia, from the Australian outback, from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Each ship carried 500 humans in suspended animation, along with genetic samples, cultural archives, and everything needed to restart civilization. The launches had been planned for decades. Every person on those ships had volunteered years ago, when the program was just a precaution that most people hoped would never be needed. "How many ships away?" David asked, watching the alien fleets move closer to Earth. 200 and counting. "Sir, launch sites report no major issues." On the main screen, David could see alien vessels turning toward the launch sites. They had finally noticed the exodus. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, destroying empty silos and launch facilities. But it was too late. Most of the sleeper ships were already beyond Earth's atmosphere, scattering in all directions like seeds on the wind. "Sir, incoming transmission. From the lead alien vessel." "Put it through." The screen filled with the face of a Kethmori commander. Its features were insect-like, with compound eyes that reflected the red emergency lights. When it spoke, the translation software made its voice sound almost human. "We know what you are attempting, humans. Call back your ships, and we will make your deaths quick." David straightened his uniform and looked directly into the alien's compound eyes. "No. You cannot escape us. We will hunt down every vessel. Your species will be extinct within the year." "Maybe," David said. "But maybe not. That's the thing about humans. We're very good at surviving." The alien's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "Your primitive ships will not reach the nearest star. They will drift in the void until their occupants die of old age." "We'll see." David cut the transmission and turned back to his crew. They were all volunteers, too. People who had chosen to stay behind and give the sleeper ships as much time as possible to escape. "All remaining ships, this is Pierce. Execute Operation Sacrifice." The last 47 human warships turned toward the alien fleet. They couldn't win, but they could buy time. Every minute the aliens spent destroying the Earth Defense Force was another minute the sleeper ships had to reach jump distance. The human ships fought like cornered animals. They used every trick in the book: ramming attacks, suicide runs, weapons overloads that turned ships into bombs. The aliens, surprised by the ferocity of the human response, slowed their advance to deal with the threat. David watched his species' final battle from the command center as it shook apart around him. The hull breach alarms were screaming now, and the artificial gravity flickered on and off. Through the cracking windows, he could see Earth's blue sky turning orange as the atmosphere began to burn. "Sir, the last sleeper ship just made the jump to hyperspace," Mills reported. 3,000 ships total. We did it." David smiled for the first time in months. "Send the final transmission." Mills nodded and activated the emergency broadcast system. David's voice went out across all human communication networks, to every colony, every space station, every outpost that humanity had ever built. "This is Captain David Pierce, Earth Defense Command. By the time you receive this message, Earth will have fallen. Our home is lost, but humanity lives on. 3,000 ships carry our people to the stars. Tell the galaxy that we were here. Tell them we fought. And if anyone ever asks what happened to the humans, tell them we're still out there, somewhere in the dark between the stars." The transmission ended just as the command center's hull finally gave way. David Pierce died as he had lived, protecting his people until the very end. The alien fleets moved in to strip Earth of its resources, satisfied that they had wiped out another inferior species. They would spend the next 50 years harvesting everything of value from the dead planet, never knowing that their victory was incomplete. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 3,000 human ships drifted toward distant stars, carrying the sleeping remnants of a species that refused to die. The holographic display showed another star system going dark. Ambassador Wraith watched the light fade from the tactical map, representing billions of lives snuffed out in moments. The Umbral Collective had consumed the Koreth system in just 6 hours, leaving nothing behind but empty space and scattered debris. Around the circular council chamber, representatives from the Alliance of Five Suns sat in stunned silence. What had once been 6 species was now 5. The Drex had been completely wiped out 3 months ago when the machines overran their home sector. Their empty chair served as a reminder of what awaited them all. General Vok of the Thraxian Empire slammed his armored fist on the table. "We cannot keep running. Every retreat makes us look weaker. Our own people are starting to panic." "And what do you suggest?" asked Counselor Nix of the Veltar Republic. "Our fleets have lost every major engagement. Their technology adapts faster. Then we can develop new weapons." Wraith's compound eyes reflected the dim lighting as he studied the tactical reports. The Keth Mori had always prided themselves on logical thinking, but logic offered no comfort now. The numbers were clear. At their current rate of advance, the Umbral Collective would reach the core worlds within 2 years. Perhaps we should consider evacuation protocols, suggested Admiral Kor of the Nexus Alliance. Other galaxies exist beyond this one. We could preserve our civilizations elsewhere. The suggestion hung in the air like poison. 50 years ago, these same species had forced another race to consider the exact same choice. The irony was lost on most of them, but Wraith remembered. He had been young then, serving as a junior officer during the harvest of the third planet. In the Sol system, evacuation would mean abandoning over 1 trillion civilians, said Prime Minister Kess of the Unified Worlds. The logistics alone would be impossible. General Vok stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the council chamber. Then we fight. Even if it means extinction, we go down fighting. With what? Nix demanded. Half our fleets are gone. Our best scientists are dead. The machines learn from every battle, while we just lose more ships. The argument continued, voices rising as fear crept into their words. These were leaders who had conquered dozens of species, who had carved up the galaxy between themselves like a feast. Now they sounded like frightened children arguing about which hiding place was safest. Wraith accessed his personal files, scrolling through intelligence reports about the Umbral Collective. The machines had appeared 18 months ago at the galaxy's edge, consuming everything in their path. They didn't negotiate, didn't make demands, didn't seem interested in conquest. They simply harvested all biological life and moved on. Their technology was unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. Ships that could repair themselves during battle, weapons that adapted to any defense, swarm tactics that overwhelmed even the most sophisticated military strategies. Worst of all, they seemed to learn from every encounter, becoming more effective with each victory. We need new approaches, Wraith said, interrupting the argument. Conventional warfare has failed. Perhaps we should examine unconventional options. Such as? Admiral Kor asked. Wraith hesitated. What he was thinking bordered on desperation, but desperate times called for desperate measures. The archives contain records of other extinct species. Perhaps we can learn from their defensive strategies. General Vok snorted. The dead have nothing to teach the living. Actually, they might, Wraith continued. Before we conquered them, many species developed unique technologies out of necessity. The humans, for instance, showed remarkable adaptability under pressure. The mention of humans caused an uncomfortable silence. That particular conquest had been messier than most. The humans had fought with a tenacity that surprised everyone, using guerrilla tactics and innovative weapons that had cost the Alliance more ships than expected. The humans are extinct, Nix said flatly. We made sure of that. Yes, but their archived technologies might offer insights. They were remarkably creative when facing superior odds. Prime Minister Kess accessed her own files. I remember the reports. They developed some interesting defensive innovations during their final weeks. Weapons that could overload our shields, tactics we'd never encountered before. Desperation breeds innovation, Admiral Kor agreed. But desperation also breeds failure. They still lost. The tactical display updated again, showing 3 more systems under Umbral attack. The machines were accelerating their advance, almost as if they knew the Alliance was weakening. We're missing something, Wraith said quietly. The Umbral Collective didn't just appear randomly. They had to come from somewhere, be created by someone. Does it matter? General Vok asked. Whether they were built by extinct gods or emerged from some digital hell, the result is the same. They're going to kill us all. But Wraith was already deep in thought, his analytical mind working through possibilities. The machine's technology was too advanced, too sophisticated to have developed in isolation. Someone had built them, programmed them, set them loose on the galaxy. The question was who and why now? "I want to review all archived data from conquered species," he announced. Perhaps one of them encountered similar machines before. "Reviewing archives won't save us from extinction," Nix protested. "No, but understanding our enemy might." Wraith stood up, his decision made. "We've tried brute force and conventional tactics. They haven't worked. Maybe it's time to think like the species we conquered. Desperate, creative, and willing to try anything." The other council members exchanged glances. They were running out of options, and everyone knew it. The proud alliance of 5 suns, masters of half the galaxy, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they didn't understand. "How long do we have?" asked Prime Minister Kess. Admiral Kor checked the latest projections. "Based on current advance rates, the machines will reach Nexus Prime in 14 months. Veltar space in 16 months. The core worlds will fall within 2 years. Then we have 2 years to find a miracle," Wraith said, "or to accept that we'll share the fate of every species we ever conquered." The council chamber fell silent again as the weight of their situation settled over them. For 50 years they had been the apex predators of the galaxy. Now they were prey, hunted by something far more dangerous than they had ever been. Outside the station's windows, the stars continued to shine, but everyone in the chamber knew that soon, many of those lights would go dark forever. The Umbral Collective was coming, and conventional wisdom said there was no way to stop them. But somewhere in the archived records of extinct civilizations, there might be an answer. The species they had destroyed in their arrogance might hold the key to their survival. It was a bitter irony that none of them fully appreciated yet. The galaxy's greatest predators were about to become students of their former prey. The proximity alarms started screaming at Aero 347 station time. Security Chief Voss rolled out of his sleeping pod and grabbed his weapon before his feet hit the deck. In 30 years of military service, he had never heard the defense grid make that particular sound. A long, warbling note that meant something impossible was happening. He rushed to the security center where his staff were already at their stations, staring at displays that showed readings that couldn't be real. A single vessel was approaching New Axiom Station, moving at sublight speed like it had all the time in the world. "What am I looking at?" Voss demanded. "Unknown vessel, sir, but the computer says it's of human design." Voss felt his blood turn, cold. "That's impossible. Run the scan again." "I've run it 6 times, sir. The hull configuration matches archived human designs from 50 years ago. But that can't be right because we wiped them out." Voss finished the sentence, his mind racing through possibilities. A derelict ship that had been drifting for decades? Some kind of automated probe? It had to be something like that, because humans were extinct. The tactical display showed the vessel in detail. It was small by modern standards, maybe 200 meters long, with the angular lines and primitive thruster configuration that marked it as definitely human. But it was moving under power, responding to station traffic control, requesting permission to dock. "Sir, it's transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies." "Put it through." The communication screen activated, showing a grainy image of what was unmistakably a human male. He appeared to be in his 50s, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of long years in space. His uniform was unfamiliar but clearly military in design. "This is Tom Bradley of the human vessel Endurance, requesting permission to address the Galactic Council on a matter of urgent importance." Voss stared at the screen, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. This is impossible. You're extinct." The human's expression didn't change. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. May I dock? Or would you prefer to have this conversation over open channels where anyone can listen? Behind, the human Voss could see glimpses of the ship's bridge. The technology looked advanced despite the vessel's age, with modifications and upgrades that hadn't existed 50 years ago. This wasn't a ghost ship or some elaborate hoax. This was a living human, on a functioning human vessel, asking to speak with the council that had ordered his species' destruction. "Stand by," Voss said, cutting the transmission. He immediately opened a priority channel to the council chambers. "We have a situation. You need to get down here immediately." 20 minutes later, the council chamber had been converted into an emergency meeting space. The 5 surviving species of the Alliance sat around their table, staring at the communication screen where Tom Bradley waited patiently. Ambassador Wraith spoke first. "State your identity and purpose." "I am Captain Tom Bradley, representing the scattered fleets of humanity. I'm here to discuss the Umbral Collective and how we might work together to stop them." General Vox's mandibles clicked angrily. "Work together? We destroyed your species." "You destroyed our planet," Bradley corrected calmly. "You scattered our people. But you didn't destroy us. We've been out there in the dark for 50 years, watching, learning, surviving." "Impossible," said Counselor Nix. "Our sensors would have detected any surviving human settlements." Bradley smiled, and there was something unsettling about the expression. "Your sensors are designed to look for planets, stations, the kind of large installations that civilized species build. We learned to live differently." He touched something on his console, and the main display filled with star charts. Red dots appeared scattered throughout the galaxy, hundreds of them, marking locations that the Alliance had never explored. Rogue planets, asteroid fields, the void between systems. Places you never bothered to look because there was nothing there worth taking. That's where we built our new homes. The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. For 50 years, while the Alliance had been congratulating themselves on another successful conquest, the humans had been rebuilding in the spaces between civilizations. "How many of you are there?" Wraith asked. "Enough," Bradley said simply. "We've had 50 years to grow, to adapt, to prepare." The sleeper ships that escaped Earth weren't just carrying refugees. They carried the tools and knowledge to rebuild our entire civilization. Prime Minister Kess leaned forward. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Bradley replied. "I'm here to offer you something. Information about the Umbral Collective that could save your civilizations." Admiral Kor laughed bitterly. "And why would you help the species that tried to exterminate you?" "Because extinction is extinction," Bradley said. "When the machines finish with you, they'll come for us too. We may have learned to hide, but we can't hide forever from something that consumes entire star systems." He touched his console again, and the display changed to show tactical data about Umbral attacks. The level of detail was incredible. Ship configurations, weapon signatures, movement patterns that the Alliance military had been trying to determine for months. "How did you get this information?" General Vox demanded. "We've been watching them since they first appeared. Small ships, careful observation, staying at the edge of sensor range, the advantages of being forgotten. Nobody looks for ghosts." The data was invaluable. Bradley's people had documented Umbral tactics that the Alliance had only glimpsed during losing battles. They had identified patterns, weaknesses, behaviors that could potentially be exploited. "This intelligence could change everything," Wraith said quietly. "It could," Bradley agreed. "But I'm not giving it away for free." The room fell silent. They had known this moment would come, the price that humanity would demand for their help. "What do you want?" Counselor Nix asked. "3 things," Bradley said, counting on his fingers. "First, A formal apology from each of your governments for the destruction of Earth and the attempted genocide of humanity. Second, reparations, resource allocations to help rebuild our civilization in the open instead of hiding in the dark. Third, a permanent seat on this council with full voting rights. General Vox stood up angrily. You're in no position to make demands. Actually, I am, Bradley replied calmly. You're losing this war. Your fleets are being destroyed, your worlds are falling, and you have no idea how to stop it. We do. The question is whether your pride is worth more than your survival, the Ma. Humans' words hung in the air like a challenge. Around the table, the representatives of 5 great civilizations struggled with the reality of their situation. They were being offered salvation by the species they had tried to destroy, and the price was their dignity. We need time to consider your proposal, Wraith said finally. You have 12 hours, Bradley replied. After that, my ship leaves and you'll face the Umbral Collective on your own. The transmission cut off, leaving the council members staring at a blank screen. Outside the station's windows, the impossible human ship waited in the darkness, carrying secrets that could save or damn them all. For the first time in 50 years, humanity held the cards in a galactic poker game, and they were playing for the highest stakes imaginable, the survival of all biological life in the galaxy. The council chambers had never hosted such a tense gathering. Tom Bradley sat across from the 5 alien representatives, his weathered hands folded calmly on the table, while around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy struggled with swallowing their pride. Ambassador Wraith spoke first, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh lighting. We have discussed your terms. The Council is prepared to issue formal statements of regret for past actions. Regret isn't an apology, Bradley said quietly. General Vox's armored plates rattled as he shifted in his chair. You want us to apologize to a dead species? We're not dead, Bradley reminded him, though you certainly tried your best. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Prime Minister Kess cleared her throat. The Unified Worlds formally apologizes for our participation in the Soul Campaign. Our actions were wrong. One by one, the other representatives followed suit, each apology sounding like it was being torn from their throats. When they finished, Bradley nodded slowly. Thank you. Now, about those reparations and council representation. First, we want to see what you're offering, Admiral Core interrupted. Intelligence data means nothing if it doesn't help us win. Bradley touched a control on his wrist device, and the room's holographic projector came to life. A detailed, 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing umbral advanced patterns in red. 50 years ago, you thought you were harvesting another primitive world, Bradley began. What you actually did was scatter the most adaptable species in the galaxy across the void. We didn't just survive out there. We thrived. The map zoomed in on a sector near the galactic rim. Green dots appeared, marking human settlements in places the Alliance had never explored. Asteroid habitats, rogue planet colonies, mobile stations that never stayed in one place long enough to be detected. We became nomads, learning to live in the spaces between your civilizations. Counselor Nix studied the display. How did you remain hidden for so long? You weren't looking for us, Bradley said simply. After Earth, you assumed we were extinct. Why would you waste resources searching empty space for ghosts? The display changed, showing close-up images of human settlements. The technology was clearly advanced, but unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. Ships that looked like they had grown rather than been built. Habitats that seemed to blend organic and mechanical components seamlessly. We had to adapt, Bradley continued. Traditional technology requires massive industrial bases, rare elements, stable environments. We didn't have any of those things, so we learned to build differently. General Vok leaned forward. Biomechanical integration? Among other things. When you're living in the void with limited resources, every component has to serve multiple purposes. Our ships can heal themselves. Our habitats can relocate if threatened. Our people have been genetically modified to survive in environments that would kill baseline humans. The implications were staggering. While the Alliance had been content to rule their established territories, humanity had been evolving into something entirely new. "Show us the umbral data," Wraith demanded. The display shifted again, showing detailed schematics of umbral vessels. The level of detail was incredible. Internal layouts, weapon configurations, power distribution systems that the Alliance had never been able to examine. "How did you get inside their ships?" Admiral Kor asked. "We didn't," Bradley replied. "We've been watching them from the beginning, analyzing every battle, every movement. When you're small and invisible, you can get very close to things." He highlighted a section of the umbral ship's design. "They're not entirely mechanical. See these organic components? They're using biological processing systems, probably harvested from conquered species." The revelation sent a chill through the room. The machines weren't just destroying life, they were incorporating it into their own systems. "There's more," Bradley said grimly. "The Umbral Collective isn't operating randomly. They're following specific patterns, targeting particular types of worlds and technologies." The display showed a new analysis, correlating Umbral attacks with various technological signatures. A pattern emerged that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "They're specifically targeting worlds that use quantum processing systems," Bradley continued. "The more advanced your quantum computers, the higher priority you become for attack." Counselor Nix went pale. "All of our core worlds use quantum processing for everything: navigation, communications, defense systems. Which explains why they can predict your movements so easily," Bradley said. "Your quantum computers aren't just being targeted, they're being compromised. The machines are using your own technology against you." The room erupted in shocked exclamations and urgent questions. If Bradley was right, then every major Alliance installation was potentially compromised. "That's impossible," General Vok protested. "Our security protocols were designed to stop conventional attacks," Bradley interrupted. "Not something that can literally rewrite quantum states through dimensional manipulation." He brought up another display showing energy signatures from Umbral attacks. "They're not just using weapons. They're using some kind of quantum interference technology to disrupt your systems from the inside." Admiral Kor studied the data with growing alarm. "If this is accurate, then every battle we've fought has been compromised from the start." "Now you're beginning to understand," Bradley said. "You can't fight them with conventional tactics because they control your technology. But there is a way to stop them." The room fell silent as everyone waited for the revelation that could save their civilizations. "The organic components," Bradley continued. "They're not just processing systems. They're the key to the entire network. Disrupt the biological elements, and the quantum manipulation fails." "How do we disrupt them?" Wraith asked. Bradley smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuinely friendly. "With something the machines have never encountered before. Technology they can't predict or control." He activated a new display showing human ship designs. They looked primitive compared to Alliance vessels, but there was something unsettling about their organic curves and biomechanical components. "Our ships don't use quantum processing," Bradley explained. "Everything is biomechanical, analog, systems that can't be digitally compromised. The machine's quantum interference has no effect on biological neural networks. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Humanity's forced evolution in the void had accidentally created the perfect counter to the Umbral Collective's most dangerous capability." You're saying your primitive technology is actually an advantage? General Vok asked incredulously. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Bradley replied. Your advanced systems made you vulnerable. Our survival forced us to find alternatives. Prime. Minister Kess leaned back in her chair, finally understanding the full scope of what they were dealing with. You didn't just survive extinction. You evolved into something that can fight the machines. We evolved into something that had to fight the machines, Bradley corrected. The question is whether you're willing to work with us to do it. Around the table, the representatives of 5 great civilizations looked at each other with new understanding. Their technological superiority had become their greatest weakness. Their victims had become their only hope for salvation. The galaxy was about to witness the most unlikely alliance in its history, the partnership between the predators and their prey. 3 weeks after the alliance was formed, the combined human-alien fleet gathered in the shadow of a dead moon. Tom Bradley stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching through the viewports as ships from 5 different civilizations took their positions around him. The Alliance vessels were massive and powerful, bristling with energy weapons that could crack planets. The human ships looked like insects by comparison, small, curved things that seemed to pulse with organic life, but appearances could be deceiving. Final sensor sweep shows the Umbral command node is heavily defended, reported Commander Lisa Wells, Bradley's second-in-command. Her genetic modifications were more visible than his, enhanced reflexes that let her process information at superhuman speeds, eyes that could see across multiple spectrums. How heavily? Bradley asked. 800 combat units, plus automated defense platforms. The core structure is 20 kilometers across and shielded by quantum barriers. Bradley nodded. The Umbral Collective had established their command center in the ruins of Corvin Prime, using the industrial world's massive factories to build more ships. Intelligence suggested that destroying the command node would disrupt their entire network. General Vok's voice crackled over the communication channel. Human vessels, are you certain your ships can penetrate the quantum barriers? We'll find out, Bradley replied calmly. Just remember the plan. Hit them hard and fast while we go for the core. The plan was desperate but simple. The Alliance fleet would engage the Umbral forces directly, using their superior firepower to create chaos and confusion. Meanwhile, the human ships would slip through the battle using their immunity to quantum interference and strike at the command center. All ships, this is Bradley. Remember what we're fighting for today. Not just our own survival, but the right of biological life to exist in this galaxy. Let's show these machines what organic determination looks like. The fleet moved forward as one, accelerating toward Corvin Prime. The dead world hung in space, like a monument to Umbral efficiency, its atmosphere stripped away, its surface covered in geometric construction patterns that hurt to look at. The first Umbral ships appeared on sensors as they cleared the moon's shadow. They moved with mechanical precision, forming perfect attack formations that no biological crew could match. Energy beams lanced across space, and the battle began. Alliance vessels returned fire with everything they had. The void filled with explosions and particle streams as 2 very different philosophies of warfare collided. The aliens fought with discipline and overwhelming firepower. The machines fought with cold calculation and adaptive tactics. Umbral forces are focusing on the Alliance ships, Wells reported. They're treating our vessels as secondary threats. Good. That's exactly what we hoped for. Bradley watched as human ships slipped between the larger combatants like sharks through a school of whales. Their biomechanical hulls absorbed sensor pings, making them nearly invisible in the chaos of battle. The quantum interference that was disrupting Alliance systems had no effect on their organic neural networks. Admiral Kor's flagship took a direct hit, its shields flaring as exotic matter weapons tore at its hull. But the Nexus Alliance vessel held together, returning fire with weapons that could sterilize continents. First-wave human ships are approaching the planetary defense grid, Wells announced. On the tactical display, Bradley could see the human vessels beginning their attack run. They moved erratically, using flight patterns that seemed random but were actually based on predator-prey dynamics that the machines couldn't predict. The Umbral defenses tried to lock on to the human ships, but failed repeatedly. Their targeting systems were designed to track conventional vessels with predictable propulsion signatures. The biomechanical ships registered as something between asteroids and space whales, natural objects that posed no threat. "We're through. The outer perimeter," reported Captain Garcia from the lead assault ship. "Beginning descent to the surface." Bradley felt his heart rate increase as the critical moment approached. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If the human ships could reach the command center and plant their biomechanical virus, the entire Umbral network would collapse. If they failed, both species would face extinction. The surface of Corvin Prime was a nightmare of geometric efficiency. Massive construction towers stretched toward space like metallic trees, connected by networks of cables and energy conduits. At the center of it all sat the command node, a crystalline structure that pulsed with alien light. Uploading the virus. "Now," Garcia reported as his ship touched down near the command center. "Resistance is lighter than expected." Bradley allowed himself a moment of hope. The biomechanical virus was humanity's most advanced creation, a hybrid of organic intelligence and digital programming that could infiltrate Umbral systems through their biological components. It had taken 50 years to develop, building on research that began during Earth's final days. "Virus is in the system," Garcia confirmed. "Beginning propagation sequence." Around the command node, Umbral machines began to behave strangely. Some stopped moving entirely, while others spun in circles as their navigation systems failed. The virus was spreading through their network, turning their own biological components against them. But the victory was short-lived. Deep within the command structure, emergency protocols activated. The Umbral Collective had learned from previous encounters, developing countermeasures for biological attacks. "Bradley, we have a problem." Garcia's voice carried new urgency. "The virus is being contained. They're adapting faster than we anticipated." Through the tactical display, Bradley watched as Umbral forces began to regroup. The machines that had been affected by the virus were being systematically shut down, while fresh units moved to replace them. The collective intelligence was cutting away infected portions of itself like a body fighting off disease. "All human ships fall back to secondary positions," Bradley ordered, but even as he spoke, he knew it might be too late. Umbral energy. Weapons began targeting the human vessels with new accuracy. The machines had analyzed their flight patterns and biological signatures, developing counters for their stealth capabilities. What had been an advantage moments before was now useless. Garcia's ship took a direct hit, its biomechanical hull rupturing in a spray of organic fluid and metal fragments. The transmission cut off abruptly as the vessel disintegrated. "We've lost contact with the surface team," Wells reported grimly. Bradley closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Garcia had volunteered for the mission, knowing the risks. They all had, but that didn't make watching his people die any easier. "Bradley, this is General Vach. Our fleet is taking heavy casualties. Whatever you're going to do it now." Through the viewport, Bradley could see the Alliance ships fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. Several vessels had already been destroyed, and the rest were showing damage from the relentless Umbral assault. "Wells!" prepare the Endurance for a suicide run. His second-in-command looked at him sharply. Sir, that wasn't part of the plan. Plans change. Bradley moved to the navigation console, inputting coordinates for the command center. The virus didn't work completely, but it damaged their defenses. If we can get a ship into the core structure, we might be able to cause a cascade failure. The quantum barriers will tear us apart before we reach the surface. Not if we're going fast enough. Bradley's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power from life support to the engines. Emergency acceleration. Everything we have. The Endurance shuddered as its biomechanical systems pushed beyond their design limits. The ship's living components screamed in protest as they were forced to perform beyond their capabilities. All remaining human ships, form up on my position, Bradley announced over the fleet channel. We're going to ram the command center. The response was immediate. Every surviving human vessel turned toward Corvin Prime, their crews understanding, without needing explanation. This was what their species had always done when faced with extinction. They fought with everything they had. The combined human fleet dove toward the planet like a spear, thrust at the heart of the Umbral Collective. Energy weapons reached out to destroy them, but the ships were moving too fast now, their biomechanical hulls glowing white-hot from atmospheric friction. 30 seconds to impact, Wells reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Bradley opened a final transmission to the Alliance fleet. This is Bradley. Tell the galaxy that humanity kept its promise. We said we'd help you fight, and we meant it. The Endurance struck the command center at 12% of light speed. The impact released more energy than a solar flare, vaporizing the crystalline structure and sending shock waves through the planet's crust. The other human ships followed milliseconds later, their sacrificial impacts tearing the Umbral facility apart. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, Umbral ships suddenly stopped moving as their command network collapsed. Without central coordination, the individual units reverted to basic programming, becoming little more than automated defenses protecting empty space. In the aftermath of the battle, as Alliance rescue ships searched the debris field around Corvin Prime, they found no trace of Tom Bradley or his crew. The human commander had kept his word, paying the ultimate price to save the civilizations that had once tried to destroy his species. But humanity's sacrifice had not been in vain. The Umbral threat was broken, their advance halted permanently. The galaxy was safe, purchased with the blood of people who had every reason to let their former enemies face extinction alone. 3 months later, Ambassador Wraith stood before a memorial wall on New Axiom Station, reading the names of every human who had died in the final battle. The list was long, representing the loss of some of humanity's finest. Behind him, construction. Crews were building a new section of the station, quarters for the human delegation that would soon take their permanent seat on the Galactic Council. The survivors of the sleeper ships were finally coming home to the civilization that had cast them out. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the consequences of genocide and about the unexpected strength that could emerge from the depths of despair. Humanity had proven that extinction was not always permanent, that species could evolve and adapt in ways that defied all expectations. In the void between the stars, human colonies continued to grow and thrive, no longer hidden, but no longer forgotten. They had earned their place in the galaxy through sacrifice and courage, proving that sometimes the greatest strength came not from conquest, but from the simple refusal to surrender. The age of the harvesters was over. The age of true cooperation had begun.